Hey, thanks so much for joining this week's and final show of How I Got the Job. Today's a little bittersweet of a show. I'm going to be talking about how I got a job that I wasn't looking for in a company that wasn't hiring. But hopefully through this discussion, you'll be able to pick up on some of the things that I did over the course of this search that at the end of the day, it landed me a fantastic role that I just couldn't say no to. And to drive the point home a little bit more, I'm actually going to be interviewing my future boss, Rick Hammond, who's the Director of Global Talent Management at Ascend Performance Materials. So that certainly makes it a little bit risky too, because ultimately, if I don't do a very good job, he might be able to rescind that offer. So we're flying without a net, as I like to say over here. But certainly, as always, too, we'll be having questions at the end. And this week or this time, I'm going to be doing the most common questions I've received over the past 6.5, 7 months of doing this, of helping people, as well as your live questions as always. So if you do have live questions, please put them in the comments and I'll make sure I get to them. And Rick will be available as well to answer those questions. So, but it's been a great journey, guys. Since I started this idea in April, I've been able to help nearly 100 people on their resumes and CVs, depending on what part of the world they are and what they do. I've been able to help dozens of people on mock interviews, and I've talked to nearly 1,000 people on day-to-day resumes and things like that, where they weren't exactly clients, but I was able to help them along the way. And I've had so many success stories, so it's been such a blessing. So thank you for trusting me, those who have, and those who are watching. So without further ado, let me introduce to you my future boss. He's a native Hoosier, and if you don't know what that means, it means he's from Indiana. He's got a degree in Spanish and criminal justice from the university, or the Indiana University, excuse me. 20 years of experience in training, talent management, and leadership development across multiple industries, and he's currently director of global talent management and human resource business partner for core functions at Ascend Performance Materials. Rick, thanks so much for joining the show today. I really appreciate you hiring me, but also being willing to come out and have a conversation with me as I try to wrap up the series here and what I've been doing. So I guess if you wouldn't mind, first tell people a little bit about yourself and let them know who Rick is.
Sure. Well, thanks for inviting me to be a part of your last show. I've enjoyed watching them over the many months you've been doing it. So it's kind of an honor to be on here, really. So Tony introduced me a little bit there. So I'm from Indiana. I've been working in Houston for a little more than 20 years in various industries around town. Primarily, I worked in the oil and gas, like many people here. Found myself in multiple companies due to layoffs, due to jobs that I left, and most of those opportunities that I got over the years had typically come through people that I knew. As Tony often says, that you've got to build that network, you've got to grow and reach out to people. So many of my opportunities came through that. Some of them came through leaving because my boss left and went to a different company and wanted to bring me on to where I was. So I've been very fortunate, very blessed to have some great roles around Houston. In some really awesome industries and work with some fantastic people. And I'm really looking forward to working with you, Tony.
Oh, thanks. I'm excited too. It's a really interesting role for me, an exciting role. We'll talk a little bit about that, as well as some other things related to that. But before we get into that, for everyone to know, look, Rick and we became acquainted through what I was doing. He lives in my neighborhood, but we live in a community of over 5,000 homes, or nearly 5,000 homes now, so 15,000 people plus. So it would be very fair to say, Rick, that if you walked by me on the street 3 months ago, I honestly probably wouldn't have recognized you. And it's just because there's so many people here. So if you wouldn't mind, I guess I'd love for you to share with how you came across my profile to begin with, because when you first came across my profile, like I said at the intro, you weren't looking to hire anybody. You didn't have any roles available. But what I was doing, I guess, somehow sparked your interest to kind of watch and follow me. And if you wouldn't mind, I'd love you to share that story, because those are things that people can also duplicate in their own lives.
Sure. Well, before I do that, I just want to share that I did meet you once at a flag football game. I got to introduce myself, shake your hand. You didn't remember, but that's fine. I'm over it now.
Thank goodness, because I wouldn't have got the job.
So what was it about your profile? You know what I think it was is I saw you as you started out this endeavor, 10 months ago. And you were honest about this in your first video. This was the first time you've ever done this. You were learning on the fly. You were very humble about it. And I saw that progression that you went through from that very first video where the camera was moving everywhere. You were all over the place. And it was all new to you, but you had tenacity. And you were going to take this on, and you were going to learn, and you were going to make it work. And if you watch Tony's videos from that first one to today, he has improved tremendously in his presence on camera, in his production value of his videos. He's more comfortable with all the technology now, where you're more comfortable. So the ideas and the knowledge that you're sharing comes across better because you've gotten rid of all this other noise around you. So I think that, that and just the fact of your entrepreneurial nature, that, you weren't immediately like, oh, I've got to get another job. You're like, I'm going to try this. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to see if I can make this work. So that, and then just your personality. I read an article recently that talks about, executive presence really comes from your personality. And you and I have talked a little bit about that and how you have to modify that at times. But I saw in you that you had that leadership quality, that leadership presence that I was looking for my team, because our team at work, the talent management team, we spend a lot of effort developing leaders, and we spend a lot of time working with the senior team and supporting them and doing coaching and things like that. So I need somebody that I can trust, that I know can walk in and on day one be able to interact and engage with that level, but also with the plant level, with the workers.
And just to make sure people understand. So the way it kind of happened though too is you reached out to me. I think it was on Instagram, and it was, I mean, if anyone follows me on Instagram, it'll continue to be a journey on that thing, because I will continue because I've been doing this for so long that I still love helping people. And as things pop up, I will continue to just post random things on Instagram to help people. But like you were saying, actually you have graphics now. I know what I'm kind of doing on there versus saying, going to my wife, can you look at this real fast before I post it? And she's like, look, Instagram is supposed to be kind of instant. It's not supposed to be like choreographed and scripted the whole time. So I've learned a lot. But you reached out to me on Instagram, and you had like a note of encouragement and said, hey, look, I'm rooting for you. Keep it going. I'm really excited to see where you go with this thing. And for whatever reason, we just decided to have a cup of coffee. And that cup of coffee, again, anyone can do this, then went to drinks a couple of times. And I'd probably say it was probably a month of just weekly interactions before you actually said to me, hey, would you ever want to work for somebody again? To which I think my reaction was, I don't know. It really has to depend on the role, because I'm not looking just to take another job. I'm really enjoying what I'm doing right now. So what was going on at Ascend, perhaps, or what was going on that was making you think that I would be a fit in there? Because again, I'm mostly talent acquisition, talent management person, but a lot of talent acquisition, and you're not even over talent acquisition. So what made you think that I'd be a fit? And then were there some intricacies you had to do on your team back in the background to make it work and to go talk to people on the inside and things like that?
Yeah. I remember when we first talked, and I had to sell you, which is good. That most people should be wanting the company to sell them on what's great about their company versus, just out there looking for any job that they can find. What it is, Tony, is at Ascend, well, specifically, at least in HR, we talk a lot about, if you see a great talent, if there's some way you could make it work out, that you could bring them in, do it. Try to do it. And I saw in you not just the talent, the expertise that you bring, but the values that align really well with our culture at our company. So one of our values is one Ascend, that we work together and try to break down silos. And I know from what you shared, you have a lot of humility. You're always trying to help people in what you do. You give free advice. You've done things with the military. I'm actually wearing our Ascend Cares shirt because we have a foundation and we do tons of stuff with community groups. We support the military tremendously. With your blog and all the things that you do to help people through the things you write, the advice you give. Another one of our values is getting better every day. You've been helping people to get better. And that seems to be something that drives you, is to help people be better at their resumes, be better at interviewing. And I've seen you getting better and driving yourself to get better. And I think one of the things is your passion to coach people. That's something that I need on my team, is we do a lot of coaching, and I need somebody that has that ability to coach. And maybe another one of our values that you seem to align really well with is agility. When you were laid off, you pivoted really fast, I think, and you started this whole thing up and you made it work. You showed tremendous agility, and that's really important at our company as we try to be very agile and see what's coming in the future and be ready for it. So I felt that all of your traits that I could see in you aligned really well with our values, and it just made me think I've got to get this guy on my team, because he would be a tremendous asset for HR and for our company.
Well, see, and you said a few things there, and I want people to hear these things. When we first met, there was no pressure of me trying to impress Rick trying to impress me. It was just two people in a network growing their network. And then after a month, it became Rick trying to impress me, the candidate, as to why going to work for him, if he could make it happen and sell me to his company, would be a good thing. Which, for a lot of us, we're going to answer this question again during the Q&A, which is, how do you answer the question, what are you looking to make? But because of the dichotomy that I unintentionally created, Rick was trying to sell me the whole time early on, which meant he never asked me what I was looking to make.
Right.
He actually set up a dialogue, and we're not going to talk about specifics because I just don't think that's really appropriate. But he threw out the first number. I didn't. And he then inadvertently gave me the ability to go, you know what, that's in the right ballpark or not. So realize, people, as you're building your network, you don't have to be so focused and so intentional, because I wasn't. I mean, I certainly was making sure that I was connecting with people that I could help on the resume front, but as far as on the job front, I was just making sure that the things I was bringing were bringing value to HR as well as candidates. And Rick happens to be a senior HR professional who then came across and saw it. And then the other thing is by me putting all these videos out there, I created an opportunity for Rick or for anybody to see who I really was. You know, one of the biggest struggles I have as a staffing and recruiting professional is trying to figure out who somebody really is. And we only have interviews and screenings, and we do personality assessments and all these different things to figure out who this person is. And then we go even further to say, who are you under pressure? Who are you when you're stressed out? Who are you with your family? Who are you at work? And we do all this stuff.
Yeah.
And what I did over the past 6, 7, 8 months was I had hours and hours and hours of video on YouTube of who I really am. When my daughter inadvertently walked in the middle of a show naked, she's 4 years old, but she wasn't on screen, but she was on the other side of the screen, like how I reacted to that. Or when she ran across a soccer field in my video on taking feedback. You had opportunities just to see how I interacted with my family and with people, and how I handled questions off the cuff. And anybody can do that, is what I really want you people who are watching to realize. If you're a mechanic, an electrician, you could do self-help videos on changing the light bulb, or changing the power outlet in your wall. Since I'm the king of YouTube self-help videos when it comes to fixing my dryer or my washing machine. There's lots of opportunities where people who are watching can showcase your skills. So this certainly isn't meant to be a, hey, Tony's so great, this is all the things he did. It's more supposed to be a, this is what you can do as well. And when you do these things, you've now set up an entire profile of you that exists not on paper on a resume, not in an interview, not on LinkedIn, but an entire profile that's someone can go to and just look at it and say, huh, that's the kind of leader we want. And I'm just blessed enough that a company like Ascend and you, Rick, happen to be watching because yeah, I've been very fortunate that there have been lots of ideas of opportunities that I've turned down over the past 9-10 months because they didn't speak to me. And then when you started telling me about your company, and what was really neat too, Rick, and then I have another question for you. It was neat that you then, well, let's have coffee with my CHRO. Let's just have lunch with him. I don't know where it's going to go. And you just kept on involving me into your network, which allowed me, again, in a no pressure environment to actually just have conversations with people and showcase who I was. So it was a phenomenal process. I think I interviewed like with 12 people in your company at the end of the day, but it was in a much lower stress environment for sure.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. What advice would you give to people who are currently looking for their next great role?
Well, there's the typical, you always want to say, it's going to be a frustrating process. It's not going to happen as fast as you want it to. But I think the best advice is you have to network. You have to take those opportunities to meet people like me, have a coffee, because you never know where it's going to go. You don't know who out there is a hiring manager who may have an opportunity or they may not. Like I didn't even have a role open on my team. And I just, as I got to know Tony and as I saw him over all these months, it just sparked an idea that I really need to bring somebody like him on my team. And, I went back and I fought for a role and we made it work in HR. You know how it goes with headcount and all that stuff, but we made it work and we opened up this position so that we could bring on a great person. And so think of yourself as a great talent as you're out networking and be out there showing the best side of yourself to people when you're meeting with people. And talk about things that you've done and things that you can do and be real and show your personality. You may not be someone like Tony that's going to start a video blog or a video series, but you have opportunities to meet people in online coffees, online groups that you join, professional groups, or even in your neighborhood. There's lots of groups that form on the Facebook page that say, hey, let's go meet and do this or do that. Go do those things and meet those people because that may be where your next opportunity comes from.
That's really good. It's funny. So I just so happen to have a skill that I'm really passionate about and I'm pretty outgoing. But I often say, to your point, go volunteer somewhere to build your network. And I don't want you to volunteer somewhere just because it looks good on paper. And I don't want you to volunteer somewhere where you're not passionate at. And don't volunteer thinking that you're going to get a job at the place you're volunteering. That's not at all. But when you're volunteering somewhere where you're passionate about, just like when I was doing my own business here, people see the best side of you. They see the side when you're energized and motivated and excited. And that's your personality you want them to see. And the people you want to see are the ones volunteering side by side with you, because chances are if you're going volunteering somewhere you're passionate about, then they're passionate about that too. And if they're passionate about that too, then they might share some of the same cultural values that you have, which means you might get along with them. And then if you get along with them and they're working somewhere else, chances are you're going to be a good culture fit for that organization. It all goes hand in hand, one step after the other, but it starts with being honest and authentic and not just volunteering at an animal shelter because, well, they need volunteers. You certainly do that, but if you're trying to volunteer to help people and benefit yourself down the road, hopefully, do it where you're going to be most passionate, most fulfilled, because that's going to create a domino effect potentially that gets you hired somewhere else. All right. So now, thank you for everyone. John, Josh, Sandy, Steve, Rippon. Thanks so much for all your comments, especially all the warm wishes. You guys have all been, every single one of you have been great friends throughout. John, for a few years since we worked at FWB together. Josh, since you were one of my vendors 4 or 5 years ago at a staffing firm. Sandy, a client. Steve, a client. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you guys. So now we're going to go into questions, and the other dozen or so people who are currently watching. We're now going to go into questions. So if you do have any questions, as always, please feel free to post them. I will bring you up into the Q&A. I do have several questions, but I'll start off with a question for Rick, and Rick will be around for our questions. So if you do have a question that maybe you're sick of hearing me talk over the past few months and you want to hear a real HR leader speak with his perspective, because you probably already know mine, feel free to ask him, and I'll make sure that Rick gets pulled in and can answer them. But my question for Rick was, and I know where I would go with this, but when you're hiring, and maybe not just you either, think in terms of all your hiring managers, and when you've been hiring for yourself or for your hiring managers, what do you focus on more? Do you focus more on competency, or do you focus more on cultural fit? And then what do you see in your hiring managers? What are they doing?
I would say, for me personally, I focus way more on cultural fit.
Thank God. I'm just kidding.
You didn't know what I was going to say. Yeah, if it was competency, we wouldn't be having this conversation. No, totally kidding people. No, you have to focus on cultural fit. I have seen so many people that we've hired at different companies over the years that they flame out pretty quickly because, within the first 6 to 12 months, they just aren't a fit for the culture of the company. They have great experience. They may have even done the exact same job, but they come in and there's just too much mismatch between the culture that they need or that they want and the culture of the company. And then specifically, that's really important to us, is that we hire people that are a good cultural fit. I mean, you don't get the interview unless your resume shows that you have the right skills and you've done the right things that the job requires. And then there's going to be that screening and all of those things. So you should have that stuff, but a lot of the questions in the interview and the understanding of the person needs to be around cultural fit, because that's what's going to determine a longer career at the company. No,
that's great, because I heard a stat. I often quote a lot of stats, but this stat I just heard yesterday, which is 90% of people don't work out when they leave a job, whether they're fired or terminated. It's because of the culture fit, because technical ability is very easy to figure out. Like you said, you look at the resume, they've done it, we're doing it here, they can probably do it here. But the interview is key for the cultural fit. And frankly, even the resume might be key for the cultural fit, because on the resume, if you see things like community involvement where that individual is volunteering, and if you're not putting that on your resume, make sure if you have some key leadership roles and some organizations that shows your heart, again, you got to be very careful between if you're extremely right, extremely left on the political spectrum, if you're a strong Christian or any other faith affiliation, you got to be really careful with putting those on resumes, because sometimes companies will just see that as a liability or a concern. But if you're volunteering at organizations that help people and you have been doing it for a while, putting that on your resume can show the organization if you're a cultural fit. So a lot of times I think cultural fit is just interviewing and then having the right answers to the questions, but often you can show them in different areas and give people flavors of who you are along the way as well, outside of just the interview. So
yeah, and I would add just that you should be asking questions about culture when you interview to understand the company culture. Mm-hmm. That's a great opportunity for you to ask.
Well, and what it'll show too is that as long as you're a cultural fit, then often too, the organization, as it moves and shifts over the years and your role changes, you're yoked to the same culture, the same purpose, the same mission. So you're still going to hang around, even if the next 6 months the role isn't quite perfect, because you understand that this mission is so important to me. And we're all not as blessed. I mean, some of us work for companies that, hey, they pay the bills, and that's all there is to it. And that's okay, because we need to pay the bills. But if we had the opportunity to really find a place where we can get behind that mission as well, then we're more likely to stick around as well. So thank you for that. All right. So Josh has got a question. Let's prop his question up. Can you see that question, Rick?
I can.
Okay. So what advice can you give a candidate from a resilience standpoint that had been laid off and is still searching for a new opportunity for a number of months? Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'll start, Rick, and if you have anything, feel free to chime in. But it's a grind, right? I mean, you have to have a routine, Josh, as you know, as a staffing professional. I would say the first thing you need to do if you're an IT professional is reach out to Josh, because Josh is a phenomenal IT recruiter, and he knows his stuff. I think SAP was your specialty, Josh, if I remember correctly. But it's a grind. You need to have small goals. Just like anything, I would say, I want to make so many approaches or so many applications this week. I want to improve something. I want to have a skill. Maybe once a month, you want to get a skill better. So it's not just every single day, it's the same repetitive motion over and over again. But it's a monthly goal of this new skill, a weekly goal of talking to so many new companies, a daily goal of having one new cold call interaction or something like that. That's going to help. Also, share your story. Let other people know in your network what's going on, that you're still looking. There's nothing to be ashamed about. There's nothing to be embarrassed about, especially during a global pandemic. And Josh was SAP, so I got that right. But it's important to make sure that that you really you don't bear this burden on your own. Okay, your family's going to know you're under stress. Everyone knows you're under stress. I get it. But take a deep breath. Take some time for yourself as well. Use this as an opportunity also to make sure you're really doing what you want to do and what you're passionate about. Start a side hustle. Start something that can make you some money outside. That can advertise yourself as well to take out the monotony and the routineness of just applying to jobs. Because just like what happened with my situation, so many people, I got to roll through networking, and job didn't exist. So maybe the job's not going to exist, and the job will exist, but networking is the number one way. So I think the best thing to do is continue to grow your network. Anything you want to add on that, Rick?
Yeah, I would add that if you're, and this would be straight from Tony's mouth, is if you're if you've seen months go by and you're not having much success getting interviews, maybe you need a professional to review your resume with you and to help you with your interviewing skills, to consider that. Because if you have the skills that the job requires and you've done those things, then there's something that's preventing you from getting the interview. And it could be your resume. It could be the screening call that you have with a recruiter. And so I would encourage you to meet with a professional to get some assistance.
Thanks.
Not Tony, because he doesn't do that anymore.
Yeah, my time is now. Unfortunately, that was part of the purpose of this video too, was this message to let people know, hey, look, that's kind of where I went. To close the series up, I'll still take time on the weekends to help people if I need to and certainly any clients I'm certainly working, I will finish out your resumes as we would. So do not fret. Yeah, appreciate that. Steven had a question. I think it's more geared for you, Rick. Okay, so what is the most important thing you look to your CHRO for? Your Chief Human Resources Officer. What's the biggest thing you use? Steven's an up-and-coming HR professional. I know he's a manager level. He's over a lot of people. He's over a region, I believe. He works remotely, and I think maybe he has aspirations of being a CHRO someday. So, what are the things you look forward to your CHRO for support and stuff?
That's a good question. There's a lot there, a lot of things. I don't know if there's one most important thing, since the CHRO happens to be my boss. For me personally, I look to him for my development. I look to him for getting obstacles out of my way so that I can get my work done. I look to him for the strategy of where is HR going as far as meeting the business needs. And I think one of the most important things that a CHRO has to have is a really good relationship with the CEO. He has to have a seat at the table. He has to be aligned. He has to be able to influence the CEO. And if he doesn't have that, then you're going to have a rough go in HR, I would say, because it makes your job a lot worse as an HR organization if your CHRO is not sitting there at the table influencing and not just influencing on HR topics, influencing on business topics as well. And so I'm very fortunate. We're very fortunate to send that we have a great CHRO. He's a business leader as much as he is an HR leader, and he and the CEO are very much aligned, and that makes our HR jobs a lot easier.
Great. Thank you.
Good question, Stephen.
All right. So with that, I'm going to go 2 questions that I often get. Rick, I'm going to pop you down. If anyone else has a question, though, for Rick, by all means, feel free. Hey, it's the last show. We can do anything we want, right? I'll make sure that we bring Rick back up. But there's 2 questions I want to answer because I get this question still weekly. And I don't mean still weekly as in, oh my gosh, I still get it. But it's just obviously a question that a lot of people have, which is 1, how long should a resume be? Okay, and here are some 3 tangible things that you can do to make sure your resume isn't too long. The first, well, I guess the rule in general is there is no rule. A resume can be as long as it needs to be. I do federal resumes, which were 9 pages long, and I had to whittle them down from 22 to 9. I've done resumes that are engineers that went from 9 to 6 pages long, and 6 seems like a lot, but when you actually dived into the structure of the resume, it made sense. So there's 3 basic rules, though, for how long your resume should be or CV. The first rule is the 75% rule. Make sure that 75% of your bullets on your resume are value add and accomplishment based. The other remaining 20 to 25% at most are the job description type resume bullets that kind of give context and give some clarity as to what you did day to day, because maybe you had this huge project, so you want to highlight that as an accomplishment, but really a lot of your job wasn't projects, and you want to make sure that people understood what you actually did. But the reason why the 75% rule is so important is because guys and girls that do what I do or did what I did, we scan resumes, we don't read them. So if 75% of your bullets are accomplishment based, then I have a 75% chance of scanning something of value. Don't just put extra stuff in there to make it longer if they're not bringing you value, because then it's going to dilute that 75% chances of me seeing something of value. The second thing is you don't repeat bullets, okay? You don't need to say you did an infrastructure project in 2000 that was $1 million project, and you did an infrastructure project in 2004 which was $1 million project, and another infrastructure project in 2018 which was a $500,000 project. Pick the one that's the most impressive, the $1 million project from 6-7 years ago or whatever, and highlight that. Now, you might, if you're an engineer, let me say this, and I say this all the time, and I want to say it one final time. There are no absolute statements, okay? So when I say do this, doesn't mean always do this. It means most of the time do this, but use some judgment and use some, don't be like my son. You said to do this, who's 7 years old. Beckett, like I didn't mean to like kill your sister. I meant like, you know, practice jujitsu on her or something. But make sure for the most part that you don't repeat the accomplishment, even if you've done it in different companies. You follow the 75% rule. And then the last and final thing is make sure that the vast majority, 90% or more, if your resume is long, if your resume isn't that long, then it's fine to not be so strong on 90%. But make sure the majority of your bullets are relevant to the job you're applying for, or relevant to what the company does, or relevant to what the job could grow into. You need to make sure that they're relevant, because if you're applying to a job on being a basket weaver and all of your experience on your resume is around being an NFL football coach, guess what? It's not relevant. But if you did a workshop for the NFL team about basket weaving, I have no idea how I pulled that together, for Haiti, for people in Haiti, well, then guess what? You've just found some relevancy in the job that you did for the job you're trying to get. So with all that, 75% rule, relevancy, don't repeat bullets. If you follow those rules, your resume will be as long as it needs to be without going over. The other question that I get all the time is, and I want you to hear it the last time is, how do you answer the question, what am I looking to make? Now, again, I was blessed in a scenario where I didn't have to answer that question in this role. And I think because Rick has been watching so many of my videos, I think he would have had a really good counter when I came back with that. But fortunately, the way you answer that question, if you're not networking, okay? If this is a cold call where you've submitted a resume and you get a call back on a phone screen and you're gonna get that question to somebody you don't know, often in the first conversation, you need to have done your homework up front, which means you need to know what the job should pay. You should go to salary.com, payscale.com, Glassdoor, Indeed. There's several professional organizations which have their own group. I know SPE, the Society of Petroleum Engineers, has their own pay scales calculators in there, where they've aggregated data and they've been able to say, okay, these engineers in this field make this and whatever. But do your homework on the front end so you have an idea what the job should pay. And you should be doing that, frankly, anyway, because you shouldn't be applying to everything in every organization. But if you know what the job should pay, you write it down. Then when you get that phone call on a random Tuesday, you grab the packet that you used to apply to that job, and you wrote down $97,500. So when they ask you, what are you looking to make, or what did you make in the past? They're going to ask you a variety of questions. But what you can come back with every time is, well, I've done some research, and from what I can tell, it looks like this job is going to pay somewhere around $97,500 US dollars a year. From what I can tell, that seems reasonable. And that's it. That's all you have to say. You didn't say you were going to take $97,500. You didn't say that that's what you were looking for. You didn't even say it's what you used to make. You didn't actually answer my question, to be completely honest with you. But me as a recruiter, I don't care. I heard a number. I can now write it down. And now I'm either going to say, hey, that's great, but unfortunately this job pays $90,000. Whoa. And then you can come back and say, well, I didn't say I wouldn't take 90. It just seemed like the job should pay $97,500. Can you tell me more about it? And now the recruiter might be caught off guard because now they've just revealed to you something they shouldn't have. But the same token, you never told them you were going to take that. But I, as a recruiter, have been satisfied to hear a number. The other thing it does is, let's just say they come back with, oh, that's great, you're in the ballpark. Now, after a month of talking to a lot of people on the team, you get an offer, and magically the offer is $100,000 because we as recruiters want to show you that we love you, but and we want you more than what you were asking for, because we don't want to give you the bare minimum or perceive to be giving you the bare minimum. But what it also does is now is it allows you the opportunity to counter a month later and say, hey, look, I was really hoping for 105. But Tony, a month ago, the recruiter will say, you said you were looking for 97.5. No. I said I thought the job should pay 97,500. But that was based on a one-page job description and a 5-second conversation with you. Now I've talked to Steve, who tells me he's looking for a project manager. Joe is telling me I'm managing a budget of $500,000. Sarah tells me I have 4 direct reports and 18 indirect reports. This job is much bigger than I originally thought it was. I'm not saying I won't take 100, but I'm saying I think it's more it's more at the 105 or 110 level. Is there any wiggle room? Again, you've just given yourself an opportunity to negotiate. Doesn't mean you're not going to take the 100, but guess what? If they're giving you an offer, they want you. And that is the best moment to try to counter. Don't try to counter on the first conversation. Counter when you get the paper offer. But by setting it up on day one, you will allow yourself the most leniency to be able to do that. So, bittersweet people, this is it. I really appreciate Rick. Thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate you joining and seeing something in me that I think is there too. but validating that. Anybody, look, Rick said something. If you need help on resume writing, search out professionals who can help you. Okay. Make sure that if you've been doing the same thing over and over again, like Josh said, and you're not getting the results, you need to find someone who can show you how to get the job. You're doing something wrong. If you've applied to 100 places and you haven't gotten one phone screen, you're doing something wrong. If you've gotten 3 to 5 phone screens, you're about average. But if you've gotten 0 for 100, that's not good. And we don't want to keep on doing the same thing with minimal results or no results. So I guess that's it. This is so weird saying, join me again next week, because there's not going to be a next week. But God bless you. Thank you so much for participating and allowing me to help you. My YouTube channel will always be there. Let's do a quick plug for that. I will continue to do videos from time to time with some irregularity. It's not going to be normal stuff, but it's been a blessing, and love you guys. Wish you all the best, and don't hesitate to reach out to me if you think I can help show you how to get the job, because I'll be glad to help anyone I can in any way I can. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.